All right, it's time for Yogi and the BeachMan. Hi, I'm Jim the Yogi.
And I'm Rick Beach the BeachMan.
We're two Michigan transplants now living in Southwest Florida.
In fact, we're cousins born in 1964, just a month apart.
I like to meditate.
And I like to play bass in a band.
I'm into chanting Om.
And I'm into throwing down some classic rock.
But together, we're on a mission
to promote people that are helping other people.
We want to make the world a better place.
One conversation at a time.
So sit back,
turn up the volume,
and get ready to laugh.
Because we like to have fun
while we spread the love.
Interviewing lovely people. Yes, we have fun.
You're up in California?
Yep, I know Jim used to be out here and then he left.
Yes. We tried to stay, we just couldn't afford it.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we would have been renting for the rest of our lives and we didn't want to do that. Yeah. Welcome back to this week's episode of Yogi and the BeachMan. Today we are with Joanna Burns. Joanna is the host of the Leather and Lace podcast. Welcome, Joanna. We're excited to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Hi, Joanna. I'm Rick. Nice to meet you.
Hi there.
I know you guys know each other from a previous life when JP was on the West Coast.
That's
True.
right. We met on the pickleball courts.
Yep.
And I think the last time we talked, you were about to do a 4-0 or a 4-5 tournament.
Oh yeah, we've done a 4-0 and one time we did a 4-5 just because the 4-0 was filled.
Okay.
And we're like, screw it, let's do 4-5. Why not? Really, the point is you're paying money. We're not necessarily like we want to get the medals. Like the medals aren't the thing, it's the games.
Yeah.
So I want a hard game. I want difficult games. I want to be challenged. It doesn't really matter so much like where I place at that point. It's just getting the games.
Yeah, I love that. How did you guys do it? 4-5?
I think we won like maybe half of the games we
Well,
played.
that's good.
Yeah,
That's
for
really
sure.
good.
We were like one game away from being silver because we were leading that game, that
Yeah.
match like by 7 points, I think. And
Wow.
Oh, that crushes.
yeah, and then it got weird. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
what are you gonna
Well,
do?
that's
And
really
it's pretty
amazing
good.
because I mean, I think a year and a half ago when around that time when I met you guys, you were just getting into it.
Oh, yeah. 2 years ago is when we started. So
Okay.
that sounds right.
Yeah.
You've been playing pickleball for only 2 years and you're playing in 4 or 5 tournaments right now?
Well, the one time we did 4 or
Well,
5.
that's but
Still.
still, even to hang and feel good about it, and not get pummeled, is an exceptional
Oh,
feat for
thank
someone
you.
that's only been playing for a couple years.
It really is.
Well, we're pretty much nerds for it. So
I love that.
huge nerds.
Pickleball nerds.
I love
Yeah.
the pickleball stuff if I'm scrolling, and then
There's some fun.
there's some funny ones.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. So, you got this podcast, Leather and Lace. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I know the name seems like it's provocative or even sensual,
It's a
but
little racy.
it's a little racy.
That's what came to
Yeah.
mind.
You think I'm going to talk about like BDSM or something, but it's not. It's more about tension or like um paradoxes. So to me, what I like to explore is that tension between spirituality and physicality. And there's a tension there because I fully believe that we're spirits in human form. And so there's this truth that we are eternal and that we're perfect and we are made with love. And then there's this reality in this physical space that we are flawed and that we have these physical desires that don't always align with our spiritual aspirations. And I think there's like that tension is the purpose that we're here and we should live in that tension and to really explore it instead of like ignoring it or rejecting it, because that's where wisdom lives and that's where truth lives. And so the whole focus of my podcast is just finding value, mystical value in the mundane and the physical stuff that we don't think is important. We spend our lives eyes closed in the mundane as if it has no value. And I don't know, I just want to really explore that tension. Like maybe I'm still figuring out the direction of this podcast. Like my podcast episodes so far, I've just shared insights. But what I really want to do is like take things that are trending or news, I don't know, whatever, that's so physical and have maybe a spiritual reaction to it or figuring out a way to view it with a spiritual lens so
Mm-hmm.
that we don't reject it or we don't overly celebrate something as like the thing everybody should do, but more so just seeing the lessons that we can learn and how we can really integrate it with our spiritual truth, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I think it's a beautiful thing. What inspired you to do this?
Jim, just
Well,
make a difference on my volume, just halfway from where you turned me down. Turn it back
Got a
up
little bit up.
just a little tiny bit.
There you go.
Thanks.
well, first of all, I just have to say that I think podcasts, even though mine is quite small and doesn't hardly have any impact on the larger collective, I think in general, podcasts have been incredible
Mhm.
for people and in community as a people. You know, there's not this centralized media that we're all consuming. Now we have this freedom to share and exchange knowledge with the marketplace, with everybody, right? And so fundamentally, I value that privilege and that right. And and seeing as how spirituality has been so important to me since
Mm-hmm.
COVID, when I was like a full-blown atheist and long story short, became spiritual in that time. And I knew that I have all these insights that I want to share, but I also learned through my spiritual journey and stuff that sometimes people who are spiritual or on the path can be up in the clouds all the time. And
Yeah.
it's like it's never grounded. No, they're unapproachable, they're unreachable. And I didn't want to be that. I'm here on earth. There's a reason why we're on earth. We're not trying to transcend earth while we're here on earth. Like our work is here, right? It's
Mhm.
the same way when Jesus became man or whatever and he was on earth, he was doing earth things. I mean, he wasn't sinning, I guess, supposedly, like everybody was, but I'm saying like there's a purpose for us to be here, and this is where we need to be. We're not always lost in the clouds and not really speaking in terms that actually connect with people, right? It's kind of like the
Mhm.
difference between the Pharisees and Jesus, where like the Pharisees are lofty and they're not really approachable, ivory tower-esque. And then you have Jesus who's like with the prostitutes, with the people, and in with the lepers, you know. So,
Mm-hmm.
And a donkey.
and a donkey, right? He's not too good to ride on a donkey. And I love that. I love that whole concept of a collective coming together to share knowledge. And and I knew I had things I wanted to share. And I partnered initially, the concept of leather and lace was going to be me and my one friend, Ken. And it was going to be a conversation with like a man and a woman making sense of things that are polar. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it was motivated from my political journey, because we all know politics is probably the most polarized thing that we're dealing with right now. And for me, I got red pilled. I don't know what your guys' views are, but I got
When did that happen? Do you woke up during COVID? Is that what?
well, I got my spiritual awakening during COVID, but I was vote blue no matter who, okay, for
Okay.
a while after that. And it was really after Trump survived his assassination that something happened to me, like where it's like, wait, if this guy is Hitler, why did the universe save him through this miracle, right? And that just it just like made me initially, that wasn't like when the red pill happened, but it just like made me stop and think, you know, I don't want to participate anymore in this hate. Like, I don't want, I'm part of the problem. It was like this realization suddenly that, like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm part of the freaking problem. Like, if I'm sitting here saying these people are evil or whatever, and they are so divisive, what am I doing with my rhetoric? I'm dividing. So I said, you know what? That was the first step. I was like, I'm not going to participate anymore. Something is important about Trump. He's alive, even though a bullet nearly killed him. And so
Mhm.
I said, something, he's here to do something. And who am I to argue with the universe? And what that did was it made me more open-minded to consume conservative voices,
Mm-hmm.
which, of course, as a liberal, I was told was completely, they're all dumb, they're all brainwashed, and
They all
they're
lie.
hate, yeah, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And but I found out that wasn't the case. And to me, it reminded me of the experience when I was like a super dogmatic Christian, because that's what I was brought up to believing. And the
Mm-hmm.
Christian leadership telling you, don't listen to secular music, don't read those other religion, they're all lies. You know, the devil lies about that
Yeah.
stuff. It's the same, it felt like the same thing. And the same thing drove me away from the Democratic Party, that drove me away from Christianity, and that's hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like hypocrisy. Not to say I've never been a hypocrite myself, but though that the hypocrisy was crazy, right? When the DNC didn't even have a primary
Right.
and they're like, we're trying to save democracy. Like, am I?
You can't vote, but we're saving democracy.
I'm like, what the F is
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah.
So,
I think that was
yeah.
all about money. I mean, there was this big chest of money that Biden had, and if they dropped out, they'd just send all that, if
Yeah,
she didn't come in, they'd have to send all that money back. Wasn't that true?
there was like a $200 million war chest. Yeah, that
Yeah.
if she, I don't know, but he had to sign it over, and he wasn't really even in his faculties at
Right.
that time.
Oh, I
So,
know.
and but you mentioned something earlier, and I'm gonna love this conversation because I was red pilled in like 2008 when Ron Paul was running for president.
Oh,
Okay, so
wow.
because after 9/11, Jim and I are both Navy vets. I've always been a
Army vet.
gung-ho,
All right.
hardcore right-wing Rush Limbaugh Republican my entire life. Never voted for a Democrat.
I thought you were a liberal.
Huh?
I'm a libertarian.
I'm
Oh,
in the
working up to
process
that.
of getting there.
Got you. Okay.
2001, 9/11 rolls around. I'm ready to leave my wife and 5-year-old baby and go back into the military to fight
Ooh.
for the George Bush says and Donald Rumsfeld. And then
Gosh.
and I was that way until Ron Paul ran for president. And then I started digging into his rhetoric about the Federal Reserve and this budget and dark
Hmm.
money and the deep state. And you said it earlier. I wrote it down. It was one of the first things you said, centralized media. Uh, and at that point in time, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm just pledging my allegiance to this machine who wants to take my money and kill people with
Hmm.
it. I
Hmm.
have no beef with these people. Then to turn out it was all a lie and the
Hmm.
weapons of mass destruction bullshit.
Right.
So that really flipped me to be a libertarian. And so for years I called myself a recovering Republican. And and now, and I hadn't voted for a winner since Ronald Reagan. Okay, I'm
Mm,
61 years old. And I hadn't voted for a Republican for president until Donald Trump. And I didn't
mm.
even vote for him the first time. I voted for Gary Johnson. But I did vote for him against Hillary. But to see someone like you who, probably about the same age I was, or I'm sure you're younger than that, but well, this is 25 years ago, so probably about right.
I'm
And
going to be 44. So,
okay, so I'm 15
What?
years ahead of you. You look
yeah.
wonderful, by the way.
Yeah, you
Oh,
look like you're in
thank
your 20s.
you.
And because I have friends that just want to pick fights with me
Mm,
on left wing agenda stuff, and they'll just pick and pick and just
Hmm.
one tidbit. And I just say, man, you got to quit watching.
I
I
know.
call it corporate media
Mm,
because if it's
Hmm.
sponsored by Pfizer, you are being propagandized. Any of I mean, the pharmaceuticals run the country. They run the media. They run basically the whole narrative that goes down on the corporate airwaves. So if you get your
mhm.
information from that stuff, you're you don't
Yeah,
need to know it. You just need to recognize it.
it's like your daily pill. Like we're
It
all
really
in
is.
this insane
Yeah.
asylum, and for us, we don't swallow it. We're just like, God, I thank you.
Right.
So when
But
you switched over to conservative voices, who do you like to listen to now?
oh my God, I love Candace Owens.
I was gonna say Candace.
Oh my
She
gosh,
takes no
what an
shit.
incredible
I just
woman
love
she
her.
is. And I like Charlie Kirk. I don't think Ian Carroll is a conservative, but I love the stuff he does. I mean, sometimes it's hard for me to go deep in rabbit holes, though, because to me, I'm not going to get stuck in the weeds. I
Right,
get have enough patience to dive a little bit deep, but then to me, I ultimately knowing that it's all games as a
Right.
spiritual
right,
seeker, right? It's kind of like, I don't have to know everything. In fact, the more logical I become, the less in touch I am with what's truth. And
right.
and so
Most
yeah, so
intuitive.
in becoming red pilled, I think the biggest thing that I had to deal with was my overwhelming sense of guilt for having said and thought horrible things about MAGA. I'm not even going to say
Mm.
Republicans because there's still a sense of that neocon uh negative feeling that I get when I say Republicans because MAGA is different.
It is.
Hmm.
It's so different. It's everyone. It's the unifying thing, and that's so sad to me when people can't see that. But I know why they can't see it. I was there, not to. I mean, I got red pilled like 2 months before the election. So I'm a newbie. But yeah, like, and then in
It,
becoming red pilled, I wanted people to just stop being so emotional and passionate about their political beliefs and try to find a way to speak about polarities in a more peaceful way. And I think that was like the motivation behind my podcast originally. And
Hmm.
ultimately, what it took me down on is the realization that fundamentally, with political polarity, with religion, and every other thing that is, catalytic for us as a collective, at the heart of it is it's the polarity within ourselves, right? It's the
yeah.
the disconnect between our spirituality and our physicality, our body and our spirit at the fundamental part of it. And nothing will get fixed if that piece doesn't first get fixed in individuals. So that's kind of like the journey that my podcast took.
So how do you intersect those two things? Because I mean,
Intersect politics?
like spirituality and politics.
Um, by talking about it without losing our shit. Like because I'm telling you, like, the spiritual community that I was a part of, we had like a big group on Telegram. They're very left leaning, and when the election happened, people were very open about expressing their grief. And the rest, there's a few of us that are not was not in grief. We were not in grief.
Right.
And and it got a little bit like where the few of us were like, maybe we should say something so that if there's other people who are silent or don't feel comfortable, we just want them to feel represented still. And so we said something like, oh, and if you guys are not sad, there are some of us here.
Yeah.
And because even in a spiritual group, it is still it's still society. It's not like we're special because we're spiritual. And even in that group, stuff exploded. Like it got it got heated. And so we decided we're not going to talk about politics anymore. And then we had to branch off and do our own group. And it's like, oh my God, even
Because
in,
yeah, because that faction is so radical
I
that they
know.
look at you as the
Yeah.
rhetoric that is represented by the divisive, once again, corporate media, which just loves to propagate this stuff.
Hmm.
So it's
They
really
love hate.
sad. It's really sad that that had to happen. Because I don't think if it was the other way, it wouldn't have went that way. Like if
No.
Kamala would have won, you guys wouldn't have went bitter and hate filled.
No, we're
So,
trying to sabotage things.
but,
What
but
is
so
that?
so then
Right.
how would it be? How could you approach someone in a manner to not have that result happen? I don't know how. I haven't been able to figure it out. And
Well,
I have to
I
go on
actually have an episode on that. On is political turmoil a divine design? Because first of all, we didn't come here to have like everything be roses and puppies and stuff, right? There's a reason why we incarnated as humans and not just stayed where everything is perfect and lovely. So, first of all, we have to have this acceptance that things aren't always going to be great. Things are going to be uncomfortable, and that we're actually one and not a bunch of separate people. Like that concept of unity is important, but it's hard to get to there. I mean, it's hard to get to this place where you just think everything is one, and I understand that. So, in my video, what I said was the best way is to first of all acknowledge that the polarity isn't something that is bad. It's actually the doorway to unity, ironically. And I love irony. So to me, polarity is a doorway to unity because when we sit in that tension, um, first of all, we can say nobody knows a damn thing. So why are we dying on all these hills that, oh, I'm right about this? It's like there's this imbalance between this desire and this obsession with being right and very little olive branches willing to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And until we can fix that imbalance within each of us, we can't reach an agreement. So it's like, while we can't agree on our politics, and we don't need to, we don't have to, because we're different people. Duh, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's not about, like, unity isn't about, like, everybody agreeing. Unity is about being able to coexist with a variety of perspectives.
absolutely.
So it's not about trying to get everybody on the same page, and that becomes a battle. But when
Mm-hmm.
it's about connection and understanding, then you can have a conversation. And I think the bridge to that is humility. It's saying, I might be wrong. And
Yeah.
for anyone to get red pilled, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You proverbially get on your knees and be like, oh my God, I was wrong. I've been wrong.
Well, I
And
forgot what writer it was or philosopher, but I know a quote that, it's much easier to fool someone than to convince them they've been fooled, or for them
yeah,
to admit they've been fooled.
yeah.
And and that's where I find it. I, once I have relationships with several people that are lefties, and
Mhm.
we just have to avoid we just avoid it.
Yeah, and that's
We really
unfortunate.
do,
It is
But that's
unfortunate.
because it kind
unfortunate
of
to
ramps
me.
up. It ramps up to
But
anger
why?
quickly.
Yes, exactly. Why? Why can't you
Yeah,
just have a
and
discussion and share
yeah,
different
and to
views?
me, it's like the more tension there is, that's the sign that that's where we need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And all we do is avoid, avoid. The way creation works is you can only avoid something for so long. There's a reason why it's here, and it needs to be integrated. It needs to be looked at and explored. And the more we pretend it doesn't exist and we avoid it, it's only going to be more difficult when we are forced to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you could plug that. I mean, we're talking religion, but you could, I mean, politics, but you can plug religion right in there and we're having the exact
Absolutely.
same discussion.
Exactly. And people don't want to talk about religion either. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
understand it because I think it starts at that place of ego where there's this enmeshment between our belief and identity.
Yeah.
And it's now you're entering into tribalism, which
Mm-hmm.
isn't great if we're trying to, as a collective, move towards unity, which is truth. The truth is, we are all one.
Yeah. We're all earthlings.
Absolutely. And so it's a hard concept to really grasp um, logically, but I think we can feel it inside that that's what empathy is.
Mm-hmm.
And really science has caught up when seeing that everything is connected. Like I'm not a physicist, so I'm not gonna be able
Yeah.
to express it so well, but you know, there's like this unified field and we're
Absolutely.
all particles.
Well, and now with
Yeah.
with quantum physics
Yeah.
making leaps
Mm-hmm.
and bounds with AI, I mean, it really kind of terrifies me what the next 20 years are going to look like. But it's from the AI side of things. But they're really looking at 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, or even a year ago, if you started talking to me about different dimensions and gateways to them, I'm like, okay, that's all science fiction. But now it's becoming
Mhm.
almost on
Yeah.
the edge of proving these things, like with the super collider in France and stuff. So they're proving these other dimensions exist, and so now I've opened up my mind to, okay, if these things are physically provable, then I have to open my mind to say, okay, then
Mm-hmm.
people that I thought were quacks in the past
Yeah.
really might have
You were
something to say
wrong.
about, and so I'm looking inward and saying, okay, maybe I was a dummy.
I
And
love
these
that.
and that's happened to me a couple times, like with the I told the quack doctor, the local homeopathic guy I met 25 years ago, and he's eating his herbs and berries, and I'm thinking, what? Yeah, fine, I'll have a cheeseburger. Yeah, now he's 75 and looks younger than me, and and
Yeah.
and now I'm on his bandwagon and have been for several years. But
You have him on speed dial now.
it's so hard to make that switch, and some people just refuse to do it,
No, you just have to
and that's kind of sad.
Yeah,
release this like burden of having to be right.
right.
It's like just
No,
be
that's really
wrong.
it right there.
It
That's you
is.
having to win.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
if you give up your position or can't double down on everything, you're losing.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, that's a function of that corporate media, which has instilled people with crazy levels of fear. And whereas it might have been about identity, and it still is, now there's this existential crisis involved
Hmm.
where like democracy is going to die. Oh my God, women are going to lose their rights. It's like, what? And I can't believe I believed all that.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff they said about Donald Trump. And that was another key point when I fully swallowed the red pill. I was flirting with it, looking at it, like, but when I finally swallowed it, it was because I saw this one little short video on Instagram of a black guy saying about the Charlottesville thing. And when Trump was like, find people on both sides. And we all know how that was spun. And
Hmm.
I believed that for so long. But when you watch even just a few seconds after he said that, he's like, and I'm not talking about white supremacists because they should be condemned.
You didn't hear that in the news.
No, you did not. And to
Yeah.
me, I was like, okay, if he is all these horrible things that they're saying he is, why lie? Why do you have to lie?
That's a very
Don't you
good
have
point.
enough evidence for that if it's freaking true? And I was mad. The process of getting
Hmm.
red pill. You get
Yeah. Yeah.
mad. You're
Yeah.
like, you lied to me. You are exploiting my ideals and
Hmm.
you lie. And
Yeah.
I
yeah.
forget what they call that, astroturf. They astroturf everything. They put a coating uh, uh, of basically bullshit.
Hmm.
And when you can
Yeah.
see the corporate media, you'll see. I know you've seen these collages of the. They'll start flashing reporters over the screen one at a time, and they're all saying
The
the
exact same
exact
thing.
same
Yeah.
script from Seattle,
Yeah.
Washington to Miami,
Yeah.
Florida to
Yeah.
Portland, Maine,
Yeah.
It's
and
creepy.
you
It is
have to
creepy.
get
Mind control.
that's what. Yeah, I get zero of my news or information from corporate. I will tune in to see what I have to go against if I'm
Yeah.
going to talk to someone.
Always gonna know that. And surprisingly and ironically, when you go to the other side, and the other side just means out of the liberal party because they're,
Hmm.
I don't know what's going on there, but it's not good. They're hateful and they can't see it. Like there's this one guy who's very much super leftist, and he'll sit there and say things to me, right? Like I had shared that I had a narcissist dad, and that has given me a lot of catalyst in my life that I still struggle with to this day. And I had shared that. And he goes, maybe you voted for Trump because you want the world to feel the pain you went through so that you could be finally understood. And I'm
That
like,
is
Oh
so
my
deep.
gosh.
that is effed up to say to
Yeah,
somebody, first of
that
all, like,
is.
I want people to feel what I felt so I could be understood. And so he said this attack. It was an attack. And
Yeah.
that's you're
Yeah.
using a personal sharing of mine against
Mhm.
me. And at the same time, he's going to be the one that says, "Oh, we don't want anybody in this group that supports Trump and defends him because I want to protect a safe space for the women and for people who are gay and trans and all this stuff." Like savior stuff that they have this like I don't know, like they like
complex.
Well, it's the whole identity politics thing, and
righteousness, a
Yeah.
righteousness.
it really is,
Yeah.
and the way that they play the division, and in a couple days, Pride Month is coming around again, and from a couple years ago, and even last year, when you know, I'm not a big player in the Pride Month thing. I think it's
Mhm.
divisive. It separates people. It separates groups. I don't go out and care if you're gay or lesbian or trans. I just
Don't
want to
care.
leave the kids alone.
Yeah,
Just leave the
exactly.
kids alone. And now I look at that at Pride Month because they've taken underneath that whole umbrella into not leaving the kids alone and
Hmm.
not keeping my three daughters safe from if they're in high school or my grandkids coming up from men in their locker rooms or bathrooms. How
Right.
about
That's important.
this? And this is like a 90-10 issue, yet
Hmm.
they will just die, like you said, you used it earlier, die on that hill. And
Yeah.
when you have things like these months that take out certain specialized groups for no other reason than just to divide, really, it doesn't bring
Hmm.
anyone together.
No, it's not. And that's so ironic. And it's like almost a miracle that what they've done to the minds of people like this, where they can't see their hypocrisy.
Hmm.
They can't see their double speak. Like I was explaining with that guy, it's like he's talking about having safe spaces, but he's the one attacking people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I'm a
very ironic.
woman, I'm a minority, I'm a veteran, like I'm all the boxes, and I'm not worthy of protection just because I,
Swallowed the red pill.
yeah, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to divide, I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand, but
yeah.
it's like I don't know. And really, the first experience I had with TDS, like even seeing that what it was when I was having lunch with a friend, and she's very leftist. And I wasn't yet red pilled, but I was, opening up. And I was like,
Hmm.
because I hated the duopoly. After what they did to Bernie, after what they did to Andrew Yang and Marianne
Yeah.
Williamson, just
Yeah,
silencing these wonderful
yeah.
candidates.
And
Yeah.
I was
RFK.
like,
RFK
yeah.
would have won the nomination if they would have let him have it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm
So
sorry.
no, no, it's okay. So I was just explaining to her, like, I don't know, I'm going to vote for RFK because I had already changed my affiliation to independent. Like after 2020, I'm
Hmm.
independent. I wanted to communicate my disdain for the duopoly and the Democrats.
Yeah.
And so I was telling her, I think I'm going to vote RFK. And she just started practically foaming at the mouth. Like, oh my I,
Anti-vaxxer.
women are gonna die and all
Women are
this
gonna
stuff.
die.
And I was just
Mm.
like the energy shift was so real.
It's
And
toxic.
I hadn't seen her in a while. And my partner and he and I are not like, we actually are in agreement. And he's from Seattle. So we both kind of change our minds, not even talking to each other about it. Like
Hmm.
we're not, like because I was vote blue no matter who, I did get the vax and he did not get the vax. And we weren't arguing. So we didn't understand why everybody was arguing about vaccines,
Hmm.
because we just honored our safety at that time. But my point is, like, I just didn't realize that people got crazy about it until that happened. I mean, literally, it was like she just started blowing up and her face turned red. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh
But
my
I
God.
I think it's almost like a pendulum shift though, because it seems like if you go back, 8, 12 years ago, it was more the other side that was acting that way in my
Mm,
mind. And
mhm,
I
mhm.
don't know, I'm still swallowing the green pills because I can't do the red or the blue. I think we have a two party system that just keeps showing its face again and
Yep.
again. Um, but it seems like the liberals have gone crazy, but it seems like before that the Republicans were crazy. It just seems to
Yeah.
flip
Well,
flop.
the Republicans, granted, and once again, I'm not one anymore, but even the right wing side of things, there was no summer of love that the Republicans burned down cities and caused $1 billion of damage and
Hmm.
killed 30 people around the country. There was none of that destruction and violence. There's plenty of propaganda talking about it, but it really didn't ever exist. Almost
Yeah.
any of the mass shooters around the country, especially the ones that leave their manifestos and stuff, most of them lefties on SSRIs.
Well,
And
that might be a big part of the problem right there is the
oh,
SSRI.
that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, thank goodness
well,
I don't
I
take
would love to spend
anymore.
the entire hour talking politics. And if you want to have me as a guest on your podcast to do that, I would love to. But
Yeah, that'd be cool.
but since I wrote, you said this a while ago, and I really wanted to get back to it, that
Yeah.
you were an atheist till
Yeah.
COVID. Then where are you now, and how did that transformation occur? And I'm interested in that because
Ooh.
I was never really considered myself an atheist, but not really just out just hey, I'm a spiritual guy. That was the intent of my the extent of my spirituality. Now I'm
Yeah.
making the last year or so I've been working into really being a more devout Christian, although I have plenty of flaws and sins, and
Hey,
we're
that's
not here to
fine.
talk about that.
That's okay.
But so I don't know if we're on the same space. I'd just like to hear where you're at
Sure.
and how you got there.
Well, so right now I'm just a seeker. A seeker of truth, someone who believes in unity and love. I know that sounds so generic and cliche, but most cliches take a lifetime of work to finally get, like really get, you know. So initially, I was raised very fundamentally Christian, where it's like the Assemblies of God um, denomination. So there's a lot of Holy Spirit speaking in tongues and don't listen to secular music. You're going to go to hell if you don't believe in Jesus and all of that. And um and I bought into it. I was like a Jesus freak. I love Jesus. But then like the hypocrisy really got to me because like I said, my dad was a narcissist. I mean, he's not diagnosed, but you know it when you know
Yeah.
it. And and there's just a lot of hypocrisy that I witnessed. And eventually it drove me away and I became atheist. And anybody who becomes atheist from such a dogmatic perspective ends up being sort of militant atheist for a couple of years. And then you settle down and you're like, you know what, whatever. I just don't believe in that stuff anymore. And comfortably in my atheist position. And COVID happens. It's been 7 years or so, 8 years that I've been atheist, not looking for anything, but was laid off, had all this time. I was like, what am I going to binge? I binged like World War II documentaries. And then I was like, now what? What now? And I was like, oh, I really want to learn about black holes. Just
Ooh.
randomly wanted to learn about black holes, and I had no business thinking I could ever learn what those are because I almost failed high school chemistry. Like I couldn't get past the idea that or this truth that we're all just atoms and stuff. I was like, what are you talking about? And that just stunted my chemistry learning. But anyways, I set off to learn about black holes and I watched a bunch of World Science Festival videos that are so amazing. Brian Greene, he's like a theoretical physicist and he's the one that leads it. But I couldn't believe that I understood what they were talking about. And we were talking about quantum physics earlier, and like they have a lot of wacky theories, right? That introduces multi dimensions and everything. But that's what you need to do if you want to be able to make the quantum theory and relative Newtonian physics make sense together, right? Like unifying theory that they're all in the search of. But um, the only thing they could agree on, right? Since I was mind blown that I thought we knew what reality was. You're telling me you don't know reality? I was mind blown by this. But the thing they could agree on was that there seems to be a unity, like everything seems to be connected. And so when I heard that from scientific people, I was like, okay, well, if everything is connected, then maybe these large bodies of matter, like the sun and Jupiter and these planets, may have an effect on me. So it kind of made me open up to astrology. And then I read my astrology chart, and it was just point on point,
Your
everything.
natal
Yeah, the
astrology?
natal
Okay.
chart, like
Hmm.
I have a very interesting natal chart and it just was incredibly profound. And that was the gateway drug. Okay. Astrology was the gateway drug. And before you know it, I like believe in alien channelings and all this weird stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So that's how I became who I am. And through my search and my and everything I ran into, I discovered the law of one, which is incredible work. It's a channeled material and it speaks about unity. It just doesn't say there's anything right or wrong. There just is. And don't be a dick, basically. I mean, it's much more profound than that. It's hard to put into words. You just read it
Hmm.
yourself. It's wild. And and that's where I'm at. And in my seeking, I was able to find a part-time position with the organization that channeled the law of one. And that's been my thing right now. I realized that I just did not thrive in corporate culture,
Hmm.
and the universe made that pretty clear leading up to COVID. Um, and
What
so I just put
what
my
is this
faith.
organization and what are you doing for them?
Well, it's called L and L Research, Light Love
Okay.
Research, and they don't actually do research like what we think of research. It's just they continue to channel
Hmm.
um, higher dimension entities and they get messages. And these are always like general philosophies, basically. It's not ever anything prescriptive, like personal stuff. It's just a general kind of channeling.
Okay.
But the law of one is something that was channeled by the founding members in the 80s, like 1981. You know, so um, and it's really hard to put into words, but
Sure.
it's like a conversation. It's a, you know, where they would meditate as a group,
Hmm.
and Carla, the channel, would literally go unconscious. And they had these microphones on a blanket, and her hair had to be a certain way, and all of this. And she just started to speak, and it would be monotone, like not even
Hmm.
punctuation. She would just like as if she was a puppet, you know? And Dawn would
Did you
ask,
witness this, by the way?
no, I was
Okay.
born in 81, but this is
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
story of how it happened.
Okay.
And they have recordings of it. You could listen to it on YouTube and you can hear it for yourself. But so she just is unconscious and she's talking, and Dawn is asking questions. And that's how it went because free will is such an important thing. And so, according to the group that is speaking through Carla, they call themselves Ra. They said that they tried to share this with the Egyptians back in the day, but it like got corrupted and distorted and it became only for the elites or whatever. And so now in this, you know, channeling thing that the L&L founders were in, it would have to be a Q&A form where they're not just going to share information like on you. You have to ask questions. And so that's why there's this like Dawn would ask a question like anything like why are we here? What is creation? Who made us? Like all these types of questions about life, even the tarot and astrology, aliens. It's in 106 sessions. That is the law of one. And yeah, so it's not like categorized or topical
Hmm.
because it's just the transcript. Like there's no fluff. We're not adding our opinions or commentary. It's literally the law of one is just the transcript of 106 sessions of this thing where Carla would go unconscious and won't even know what she said.
Is Carla still alive?
No, she
Oh,
passed.
okay. All
Yeah.
right.
And neither is Dawn. The only one living right now is Jim. And he is in Kentucky. He's a cool guy, really nice.
Can he channel?
They do channel. They don't do
Okay.
what Carla did. That was intense. Like she would literally be unconscious.
Yeah.
So what Jim and the rest of the small team that channels is they just meditate and they have a very like um, a process that Carla taught them
Hmm.
because it's a group thing. It's not like an individual channel. They work as a group and yeah, they just meditate and then they have transcripts. Everything is free on our website. Oh, another thing that really got me,
What's
right?
that website?
Um, llresearch.org. is their dedication to offer everything for free. Nothing is behind a paywall. Like you have, if you want the book, you have to buy the book, like to
Mm-hmm.
read, but you can download everything for free. And that
Nice.
really spoke so much to me because as a new spiritual seeker at the time, I wanted to consume everything, and a lot of things are like money. And I understand that. Like, I get it. It's an energy exchange and you have to make money. But sometimes it just felt a little bit like everybody was trying to sell something, you know? And then here you
Mm-hmm.
have this organization that just gives everything for free. And
I immediately get turned off by the grift.
the grift.
I
There
really do.
are
If someone asks me
grifters.
for money in the first 10 minutes, I'm really out. And if they don't ask for money, I'm much more apt to give it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Isn't that
seriously,
weird how that works?
it is weird.
Are you
Yeah,
familiar with the
I love
book
it.
A Course in Miracles?
Yes, a lot of
Okay.
people like both the Law of One and A Course
Mm-hmm.
in Miracles because there's a lot of alignment there.
Okay.
Hmm.
That
You
makes
said this
sense.
group called themselves Ra.
Yeah, so Ra, okay.
That's
Ra said,
Egyptian. Is that named
yeah,
after
it's
an
connected
Egyptian
to
god?
the reason why they call themselves Ra is because that's what the Egyptians called them.
Okay.
But what they are is what they say is a social memory complex where they used to be on Venus and as like how we are humans. And the way consciousness evolution works is how it's going to work, let's say for Earth, how it did for them is we will become one consciousness. Like not like over 50 years or something. This is an evolution. We all will
Mhm.
become one consciousness, and now we would be like one entity, but still have the variety of perspectives. But everything is a paradox.
Yeah.
Existence is a paradox, and I just love it. But
Isn't that if we all came to, I'm just taking what you just said, and
yeah.
we said we all come together as one consciousness. Isn't that God?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's like, well, it's just like how we are also God as individual
Right.
people, and now individual people coming together. That's almost like this like entity, but it is God, but it's still like an aspect of God. Like until we reunite with the one, in there's a whole cosmology in the law of one where there's like seven densities, and so we're in third density, then we move to become like Raw. What Raw is a social memory complex of like we're almost like joining bodies and becoming one thing. And then you keep moving on until you finally join the one. See, all that is not that important to me. Like that the messaging is the important
Right.
thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to understand that stuff as a human. So why waste all this energy trying so hard? Just really feel into the truth of what it was being said. And it is incredible, just this idea of oneness and how nothing we just have catalyst. Catalyst is a big word in the law of one. They say it all the time. It's like things that happen, anything that assaults your senses is a catalyst. And they're meant for us not to reject. They're meant for us to process and to learn from,
Yeah.
so which is a healthy, there's a lot of victimization in life of like, oh, I'm a victim and it's because of this that I'm like this, or, versus just saying, oh God, there's a pile of shit at my door. What can I do with this? Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
really.
mean?
I
Like,
do.
Mm-hmm.
instead of stepping on it and blame, you know what I mean? It's like, and I love that. And that's why a lot of people really resonate with the law of one is because it doesn't judge, it doesn't do anything like that. It doesn't tell you what to do. It tells you to be, you know, suspicious of everything. Don't just
Right.
trust everything, Even this, like if it feels true to you, then it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, try it out, try reading it. It's
I'm going to
interesting.
check it out.
Yeah.
It's you're speaking to something that I say all the time, this importance of oneness, and that it's the paradigm shift that this world needs to
Hmm.
understand our oneness. And when it does, when you understand that what you do to someone else, you're doing to yourself, you're going to make better decisions. And,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously our world is making a lot of bad decisions, poisoning the world, poisoning each other, doing all these different things, even the political stuff. And, we touched on some of the
Um,
religious stuff. I mean, it's not healthy. It's not good for you. It's not good for others. So, We need this paradigm shift.
We do, and we're gonna get there. I just feel that obviously it's not gonna always feel good, that process, that
Hmm.
birthing of a new paradigm is
Yeah.
that means something has to die, right? And that's why the
Our old
more we make
beliefs.
peace with things like death
Hmm.
and change and just being able to coexist in our differences
Yeah.
is key. And that's the thing. It's so important to really remember that unity is not about agreement. It is about existing together, coexistence.
Coexisting and acceptance. Yeah.
It's really,
Exactly,
yeah,
And
and about
acceptance.
respect.
yeah. And that's the
Yeah,
problem you
because
see with the politics and the religion as people get so hardcore on this is right. They're not open to the idea of possibility. Even though,
yeah,
especially from the religious aspect, there's things in the Bible about, possibility. People reject that. They say, no, it can only be this way.
yeah,
Politics, it can only be
It
this way.
it's
depends on what it
separating.
says, though.
If
It
people are
depends on what it
if they're
says.
speaking in a way that is separating and divisive, I'd
Hmm.
rather avoid that.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, like I was saying, it's like people just think that we have to agree. It's not about agreement. And it goes actually deeper than tolerance. We're seeking truth and
Hmm.
wholeness, completeness. And completeness and unity rejects nothing. So why are we rejecting things all the time? We need to just accept everything as it is and learn from it. I know that's why I love the word tension. And I think tension is sacred because that's the guiding post where work needs to be done, where we need to keep our eyes on it versus rejecting it, saying it's evil, or saying that's the problem. It's like,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not the
stupid.
problem, it's the path.
Hmm.
That's the path.
Yeah, it's like when the metal detector goes off, it's like, what's triggering you? That's
Right.
what you need to work on is what's triggering you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm losing friends over this concept, though. I mean, even some
Mhm.
of my friends from the pickleball courts there out there in California. I
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about. There's somebody that's very outspoken. I've never
yeah.
had interactions with them, but I've heard
Uh-huh.
things.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Yeah, just off the charts. It's like, why can't you have a discussion? And the discussion was literally about, making our children healthier and what a great thing it is that we're taking
That's
poison coloring
evil,
out of the
Jim.
boxes of poison. Well, that guy who's doing it's blah 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 blah. I was like, who cares? It's
Look,
for the
unless it
kids.
comes
That's
out
what
of Biden
matters.
or Obama's mouth, I'm not interested.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's just you have to just know who you're dealing with at that point, and then you have. I mean, really, for your own mental health, you just have to sever.
Well, I didn't sever. He did. He just
Well,
couldn't.
and that's
Some people just can't have the conversation. I could stay civil and have a conversation about
Yeah,
anything,
right.
anything. I don't care what it
right.
is.
Me
Try me.
too.
We can have a
Don't
conversation.
care.
Well,
I love taboo, like
Yeah.
let's talk about the stuff that no one wants to talk about.
Yeah.
I've noticed that as the other side, if I'm having a conversation, the other side of that conversation ramps up, and I've worked on this a lot over the past year because I used to just go bananas.
Yeah.
But the more they ramp up, the more I ramp down.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
You
It's
know,
not
you
worth my
have to go the
peace.
opposite way. But that kind of enrages them, though.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
I don't know how not to trigger them.
I was so hopeful that at least maybe the spiritual community that is dedicated to the concept of oneness would have been a nice place to do this. It was still not possible. And it was very sad to realize because it's like even here we can't, like when we're people who are dedicated, to upholding unity. And the thing is, when I would come with this approach, I don't even want to get into debates. This is why I just briefly say this is why I switched, but I'm not interested in political debates. I can go to any
Hmm.
YouTube comment section and do that. In a spiritual context, when we're trying to talk about and have discourse over where our spirituality and politics intersect, it's like we don't need to have debates. We just need to discuss the concept of belief and how we come to believe things and how do we question our beliefs? Are we open to being wrong? What, how is a spiritual seeker supposed to be in this tension? but that's not how the conversations went. Everybody wants to debate, and there's the people that want to cite all these
Mhm.
articles, and it's like, I'm not going to read that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clickbait you got to recognize immediately. But don't you think though that there is a swing, and Jim mentioned it briefly earlier, how the pendulum swings back and forth, and it certainly does. And now we are swinging back, but not only politically. I think from a spiritual Christianity viewpoint,
yeah,
there's
I
a
see that.
big swing, I
Hmm.
think.
Like
Well, I think there's a bigger
trad
swing
values.
into spirituality and a swing out of, the major religions, whether it's Christianity or any others. Even, the numbers suggest that too. Since the 70s, church going has dropped down 20, 30%,
Hmm.
but more and more people are avoiding the church and getting and taking on spiritual things. I think that's where the real trend is.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure
but
you're
I
right
feel
about
like I
that.
do notice
About what?
Christianity almost making a comeback.
In
Now,
it, that's my
yeah.
point, and I know you're right. Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, I recognize what you're saying about there seems to be this like trad trend, right? Traditional. That's like a short word for traditional, where it seems like people are almost like have fatigue for things like promiscuity, porn. Like people are getting kind of sick with it, and like people are
Hmm.
starting to recognize that. And of course, the natural reaction is to find God, right? Because they can't seem to stick with crazy anymore. That's all destructive stuff. Like, even though it's like, clothed with things like, oh, it's just freedom to be who you are, and feminism means being naked. It's like, uh, it's just, it's destructive, personally destructive in a lot of ways, right? If
It can
anything.
be. Yeah. And you mentioned, since you mentioned the word taboo, I was watching a little bit of one of your podcasts. Might even have been the last one. I'm not 100% sure. But you were talking about, oh gosh, I didn't write down his name. Somebody that is a spiritual leader that recently got involved with a polyamorous relationship.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, I
yeah.
want to hear her thoughts on that. So,
Oh, yeah. So I
Aubrey or
actually just recorded that episode, and I'm going to have to edit it for tomorrow's release. But yeah, there's Aubrey Marcus. He's a very
uh-huh.
prominent thought leader in the spiritual community. He's very much an advocate and devotee to plant medicine and all of that. And he has this beautiful wife, Valana. And
Hmm.
I don't exactly know when they got married, but one of the things for her, in order for her to say yes to him, was, monogamy, because she had never even experienced monogamy, because all like her dating experience has been betrayal. She's been cheated on. People wanted open relationships. She never had a monogamous relationship.
Hmm.
And so when Aubrey was pursuing her a lot, she kept denying him because he had been in a polyamorous relationship, and so she just didn't want to think that he was a serious partner for her. But he
Hmm.
convinced her, promised her, I'm choosing you as my one and only. And so, and I don't pay attention to them that much, because I don't really like to grab onto like people too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm all about just the messaging. And when so recently it came out that they have included a woman in their relationship,
Uh-huh.
and it got a lot of negative reactions, because I think people are aware of Alana's situation, her past, but
Hmm.
she's very much openly saying that this is now what she wants, and that, she's changed. And of course, people are like, you're being manipulated. There's a lot of back and forth about things. And I had my opinion. It's okay to share an opinion.
Yeah.
Discernment, our emotions, they're all perfectly human. That's that tension, human, spiritual. Go ahead
Hmm.
and express your human emotions and your feelings, but also go within and challenge yourself spiritually and be like, why did I say that?
Yeah.
Right? You can do both, and it won't be a contradiction. Leather and lace. Okay.
Yeah.
And so my thoughts are, I also had a reaction of like, oh my gosh, is she serious? Is she being manipulated? And Aubrey, like, it's always a man that has to have multiple women, and this new woman is like almost 10 years younger than Valana, and it's like it just gave me an icky vibe. And I had commented on the video. I said, I just feel weird when something like monogamy is spoken as if it's some sort of structure or a relationship dynamic that needs to be revolutionized. It's like, no, monogamy, like feminine, masculine, is the basis of creation. It's like the yin yang, right? It's a symbol of ancient truth, not some sort of social convention that needs revolutionizing. Um, but that's the human me reacting to something in this physical space. And then I took it within, which is important, and be like, why did I have a reaction? Why did I feel something in learning about this? And dig deep, and realize, oh, it's because I have my own fear. There's a fear in me of, especially because I'm going to be 44 and like in June. It's like when a woman gets older, there's a lot of things to process, a lot of emotions, and just a lot of things. And so there is this fear. Even though I've been with my partner now for 7 years, it's like, wow, this catalyst was trying to show me this fear that I still have that, oh, my partner could decide to have a crush on like a younger, hotter, better pickleball player or whatever, right? And maybe
Better stay on
even,
top of your game.
yeah, and like, exactly. Or like see if there's anything there and decide to leave or something like that,
Sure.
right? That would be the worst thing that could happen. That's a fear that apparently still exists. But at the same time, even though I saw fear, what this catalyst also showed me was my faith. Because even though something like that could happen, in my mind, I'm like, but my faith tells me that if it does happen, that's what needed to happen. Life is right in any case. And so even though I was faced with my fear, I was also faced with this faith that I had. And it was obviously more powerful than the fear. Because how can you be afraid if you just know if it happens, then that's what needed to happen to move me progressively on this path. And so I'm thankful for that catalyst. And now that I've done this inner work, what do I care what they do?
Sure. Are they happy? That's what
Yeah,
matters,
and it's
right?
like they're just honest, whatever. If it's a grift, it's for attention, who cares?
Hmm.
It's like it's weird because once you take it within you and see why you reacted to it, you come back and you're like, who cares? Like yeah, I can still feel my human feelings about it,
Hmm.
but I also see the gift in them doing that. There was something for me in that. And so it's our work to find that and not just get stuck on the judgment, get stuck in the leather, find the
Yeah.
lace.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
is your podcast, you said you have a partner doing it with
I
you?
did. Initially
Did,
it was that way, but I just I thought that maybe it was too long at
because I,
first.
I could really just dig on, and I'm going to download it as soon as we get done with this,
Yeah.
because I could seriously dig on just listening to you talk for 20 or 30 minutes on a
Oh, thank
topic.
you.
You just have a groove about you. And
Thank you.
and
It's hard
is
to go
is that
on this adventure of a podcast. And honestly, the reason why I thought I needed a partner was because I didn't think anyone would want to listen to me. So
Mm.
it exposed something, a fear that I had. And my natal chart, I don't know how much you know about astrology, Jim, but I have my North Node at the tippy top of my midheaven in Leo. So it's like my destiny is to be in the spotlight as a job. So
Well, there you go.
so it's gonna be scary. And so
Hmm.
that's why I thought, if I had a partner, then people will want to watch. But the way the partnership worked, and he's wonderful. He's a wonderful person. And we did
It's
four
not Ken from
episodes.
Pickleball, is it?
He's
Okay, different
actually
Ken.
in Virginia.
Okay.
He's a prison ministry volunteer for the organization I work for.
Hmm.
And that's how we met. And he's wonderful. And we had great discussions. But it was like this thing inside of me that's like, telling me like, you don't need another person. Why can't you just embrace, you have so much to share? And I felt like it would be better if it was shorter and more quick, like, because like, I don't know. I'm just following what I feel.
Yeah.
But it is terrifying to put yourself out there like that, not knowing if anybody's gonna watch, and just to keep creating for creation's sake is what I am doing now.
Yeah, it's almost
And
like you're leaving a legacy.
and is
to
that
be
a
out there
guitar
forever.
hanging on the wall behind you there?
Oh, that's a ukulele. I taught
Okay.
myself how to play the ukulele during COVID, and I learned how to play the piano. I'm not expert, I'm novice at those things, but I love being cathartic, and I'm not trained in music, but to find expression through music has been a gift. You know, I have a couple songs that I wrote and stuff, but yeah.
Very cool. Well,
I
I
mean,
just have
this
to
is
say
life.
that
I'm
I
included.
love how introspective you are, how much you're following your intuition. I
Yeah.
wish more people were doing that, going within and listening to that still small voice for their guidance, because
Yeah.
a lot of times we're only listening to the talking heads for guidance. So I think it's beautiful.
Mhm.
And really appreciate you taking time to be on our show today.
Thank you guys. This has been so nice.
It's been wonderful. We'd love to have you back in the future.
Yeah, anytime.
Cool.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Yeah, it's been great, Joanna. Thanks
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. Any final
Yeah.
Great to
thoughts?
meet you.
Yeah, totally. Um, Basically just trust your guidance. I think the more and more that truth becomes elusive and unknown because there's so much smoke and mirrors, the
Mm-hmm.
more we have to go within. And that's kind of like what I've recognized. The crazier the outer world becomes, the more the universe is communicating to us, go within,
Yeah.
because that's where the truth is. And that's why it's important to have that inner balance within between your physical and your spiritual, because coming from a place of love out is what we need to do. It's what needs to happen.
I agree. Thank you again so much. Appreciate
Thanks.
you. Yeah. So if you just listen to this podcast and you appreciate the content and the work that we're doing, we would love your support. Look in the comment section of this episode. Subscribe, rate us, comment. This gets our podcast in front of other listeners. And if you noticed, we don't have advertisers. For the cost of a cup of coffee, you can help keep it this way. Become a supporter right now. We'd appreciate it. I'm Jim the Yogi.
I'm Rick the BeachMan.
Peace.